One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. If you come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego. Or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire.
All right, we were back and we're live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Alphayanchek, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. We are live. It's been a couple of weeks. Been really doing some pondering. Oh, I didn't put the link in the description. I will. I wrote an article last week. I don't know if it's article maybe is a pretty big word. I wrote something down and I put it on Gab and Facebook under Feet to the Fire groups. And on my own website, feettothefireradio.com, because it was a little too long for Gab. So I put the link there to my website, kind of explaining what I've been going through, trying to come up with this, holding these plates in the air to try and to see what I see, what's going on. And you kind of explain this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. And you got to keep the plate spinning until you can get the whole picture, what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that I'm great to see all this. I'm actually not great because wasn't having a good way about going about doing it. So I'm thinking how am I going to do this right? It's a very complex picture, but it is easy to understand if you don't get caught in if you look at certain plates and put them in the lead role, and you can ignore other plates, and then you miss a better overview, is what I was kind of saying. And I've learned a lot from a lot of people, their opinions and their information. A lot of facts come out in evidence and so on. And a while ago, I kind of saw what was going on, but I wanted to be able to kind of explain it in some really nice way. And I'm just not able to. Thanks to Gord, who wrote me and kind of said, don't worry about it, basically, amongst other stuff. Just say it. Just say what you got to say. And I don't want to sound pretentious by saying I'm trying to plan this big thing. I just want to do it right. Because while a lot of people are right on a lot of things, they get kind of lost from the big picture. I'm a big picture guy, so I could lose the details and have to go find them and then color them in my big picture so I can see it better. So I'm kind of like the opposite. I look to find things that are contradictive and wrong by the evidence that I've seen, and then try to drill in to find out where the wrongs are and so forth. And then in reality, by following those contradictions and wrongs, it actually points to a better understanding of the bigger picture. And that's kind of what I've been doing for, years now. 18 years I'm doing the show? And I've been doing it before that, my own self. And I'm kind of attracted to the BS, and by inverting the BS, I find truth. I learned a lot about God from Satan. By inverting the traits of Satan, I can greater understand God. Because a lot of people make God just like a better Satan. Make him a tyrant, only a good tyrant, let's say. Or God is not a tyrant. And that's a whole nother, I guess, another philosophical talk on a show. So I want to mention what's going on with the U.S. response to COVID. I don't want to go into COVID's source. I don't want to go into the point whether it's planned or not. It's not that I don't agree with any of those points. It's irrelevant to my big picture here. In the same way, we might go to 9/11 and say it was an inside job, and that would bog people down on proving that point and miss the big obvious points that happened after 9/11. Same thing, World War II, when they bombed Pearl Harbor. There's evidence to show that they kind of let that happen because the U.S. was not really, the populace wasn't really good, wasn't really excited about going into war. So if you look at, forgetting whether it was planned or not, the results are Pearl Harbor, 9/11 happened. And as a result of it, people were open to the hostility that followed afterwards. Justified or not, it's irrelevant. I'm just looking at the before after on that. Now, when I look at COVID, I see, okay, here's the event of COVID. COVID hits the world or America, whatever. Again, forgetting where it comes from, forgetting if it's real, if it's planned or not, if it was machined or not, whether it was natural or not, irrelevant to my point here, is what was the goal of the government's response to COVID? And when I say the government, I'm saying it in a loose term to refer to senators, congressmen, the medical, NIH, Fauci, all these people, the people in the government, both under Trump, which really were the same, and then post-Trump. Now, if I can refer back to the first two examples, both weren't interested in going into a war that was happening, right? So these two events happened, Pearl Harbor and 9/11, and now we're interested in going into war. As we look at the pre-COVID, you see Trump, who won the election, surprised them all, being a nationalist, being a constitutionalist, and started to reverse the globalism direction, brought companies from outside the United States into the United States, started to work with China on meeting, trade tariffs to counteract the imbalance of trade, trying to get companies to move back to America, make stuff here that's made in China, trying to get people to buy American because of the diminishing manufacturing base. This was it. This was in swing. It was in swing. The economics was rising. Now, President Obama wants to say it was him that did it. To me, it's more like the hope that Trump was bringing, and then the actions of some companies moving in, that drove it up. Well, that's anti what the globalists want. They don't want to have a prosperous nationalistic country. I don't mean nationalism meaning they're going to take over the world, that it's like America's taking care of America. Whatever, Germany taking care of Germany. They don't want that. They want to have no states powerful and subservient to the dominant, the world government. And again, I'm not going to go deep into that. That's just the overstatement, the overview, that things were moving up and out of what was going on prior to it. Companies were leaving the country, going and having them done cheap labor. The disparity between rich and poor was growing. These were the things going into Trump. And again, I'm not even tooting Trump's horn, right? Because he ultimately failed in allowing a lot of people who were against this stuff into a system and not finishing things he did because of the concentrating on their results, like the impeachment stuff and all that. It's not, I mean, I'm not blaming him all the way, but, it didn't happen. So to have the election, obvious fraud. I'm not going to go into that again because it's another whole talk. But we have Biden, who had barely won his, was, let's say, the least of all evils in his party, winning by astronomical amounts. Trump having astronomical amounts, Biden having even more astronomical amounts. It looks like, and all the evidence that come up that there was fraud. Forget that for now. Don't judge what I'm saying based on that. So here we are. You have Biden, now they're undoing everything Trump has done and pushing the agenda farther than pre-Trump, harder than pre-Trump, pushing it really hard. And while they're being able to use this, just like a pre-9/11 or pre-bombing Pearl Harbor, you have the COVID and the COVID response, which brought down that forward motion. Companies dissolved, people lost money. They threw in huge amount of debt, which is going to affect us in the future. And I'll get to the individual things. And it brought the forward motion down, kowtowing the system. And as they're using the excuse of COVID, now we're having this mandatory experimental medicine that's mandatory to give out, or you lose your job. You even lose potentially pensions and whatnot. You lose all of this stuff if you don't get this experimental stuff, which is way against the law. They don't make it FDA approved, which would give them a little bit more legal means. They say another drug just like it's approved. Well, we can't get that one, but this one's just like it, so that's okay. No, it's still not approved. And they extended the experimental act for another 2 years. And now they're mandating that people get this or they lose their job. Are they mandating Congress? No. Are they mandating Congress's staff? No. Are they mandating the White House and their staff? No. Are they mandating the companies who make the virus? No. They are mandating who? They're mandating the military, the police, fire, and healthcare workers, the backbone of helping the system. So that's who they're going after and threatening them with being fired, and they are being fired and leaving. So we're seeing these actions. We're taking experimental stuff, which has never been done before, the mRNA. It's never been put out like this. They don't even have decades of trials on the unfortunate animals and whatnot to do this. It's just right out. The trials are the people doing this, which is outrageous compared in history, right? They've done other things. They've experimented on the public behind their back, and the Freedom of Information Act brought that stuff out. Black community who was looked into is well aware of this, being one of the least trustworthy of the vaccines. What a surprise. I'm good to hear that, right? I think my subwoofer's still on. I'm hearing a rumbling. So you have this situation going on, and it's like the goal is we're trying to make it safe. 2 weeks, stay in your house for 2 weeks to break the curve. Well, that was a couple years ago, right? They're still having mask mandates, even though a large portion of the people have been vaccinated. In fact, at this point, much of the people getting COVID and getting ill from it and dying from it are vaccinated. That totally contradicts their point of getting the vaccine to get back to normal, to be healthy. And just today, I saw a story on CNN that said that the studies show that people who get vaccinations are less likely to die, period, for any other reason, accidents included. Now, just think about that for a minute. That's ridiculous. How would a vaccine have anything to do with getting hit by a car or heart trouble? In fact, I would say that there's more people dying from the vaccine than those who take it. If you don't take the vaccine, you can't die from it. It's just nuts how they're using the information, right? So what's the goal of this? Is the goal to help people? Are they just incompetent? Are they honest people trying to help in this brand new COVID world of this dangerous disease? Well, that would be the best case scenario to look at the incompetence and the bungling of what happened at this point. Putting people who have been tested positive, elderly people, into nursing homes unequipped to deal with proper quarantine, having all of them die, not using other medicines when they came up to try and treat it, like HCQ and a little bit later on ivermectin, not using those, demonizing those, even though they've been used for decades prior. You know, just one example, people coming in from parasite areas known for parasites have to go into an ivermectin treatment before they come here. Because it does work. And in terms of COVID and the virus is in a way can act and deal with like a parasite. I mean, a parasite in that it has to use our host cells. And plus treatments like vitamin D and other things are downplayed, when normally they are upplayed for flu. And speaking of flu is down like from 14 million people get the flu down to 1,000. Huh? Well, it's because of good social distancing and masks. That's incredible. To say that again, we're just saying things. And what I said in my little message I wrote in the beginning, which of course I had it up here to refer to, and I closed it out. Just give me a second here. Coming back up here. What I said in the beginning is that when we're looking at what's happening here, the title of the thing I put down is The Results Reveal the Goals. And that's what we're saying is no matter what they say or what they do, whatever they say, it doesn't matter. When you trust somebody, when they say, don't worry about it, you can jump out of the plane, you won't fall, right? I'm using exaggerations for a reason, make it easy. Well, you have some knowledge of gravity and planes and jumping out of them, right? You have some logical knowledge of high places and falling, let alone that high and so forth. So you were working with some knowledge on that. Well, when it comes to this virus and COVID, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't have that knowledge to be able to go, wait a minute. So when you have a guy who's been doing this stuff for years coming out there and saying, yeah, all you have to do is stay in your house, stay home from work for a couple of weeks, and we'll get over this. And they start seeing the death tolls that are being thrown in your face, even though the death tolls for normal flu were in the same ballpark. And then the death toll being exaggerated because anybody who tests positive and dies all of a sudden died from COVID. Where now it's reversed. When you test positive for COVID and you've been vaccinated and you die, well, then it's downplayed that you were vaccinated. You see how they turn the deal. So when you see all this stuff, you could see that whatever they say, you can't take it on face value. You got to look into it. And you don't have to be a doctor or physician to know. You just have to know historical perspectives. What happens when people get viruses and they get sick and they get well? They're immune to them. Now, other strains may come out if they're far enough away from the host. And even the soul, some of those people who may have a mild flu because they already have enough protection from a variant that it's only mild, right? This is all historical. So when you come up now and they say, well, no, you have to get the vaccine anyway, because even though you have had it and you have tested positive for antibodies, no, you still have to get it. What? If you have the historical perspective, you go, wait a minute, that's not right. When you have the idea of certain people have to get this for stopping it and other people don't. The people who deliver the mail don't have to. But like UPS and FedEx and those people aren't immune from it. Well, they're both delivering packages or letters, and yet those aren't. You don't have to do it. Others do. That's a red flag. That should get your head going. Wait a minute. It should be consistent. And then when you see the people who actually invented the drugs are immune from it, from any kind of prosecution, from any kind of responsibility, and They don't have to take the vaccination. They should be the first ones in line, right? They're the ones that made it. They had stuff's good stuff. We're going to make you take it. We're going to be in first in line. And, of course, the politicians who did take the shots, we don't know if it's real or not. Well, would he be paranoid? No, I'm being skeptical because when someone talks out of both sides of the mouth, you can't believe them. So you look at what happened, and you look how it differed from other times, and you look to see there's no real difference this time than those other times. When you look at the contradictions of how it wasn't from China, you can't call it Chinese virus, to now it came from China. Well, there's two differences. They were using that racism implication against Trump. Well, now Trump's gone. And you have, there's no gain of function research going on in China from NIH that Fauci was involved. And yes, now there is. There's a lie there. So this is the guy telling you what you should do, and he's lying. Of course, the mainstream media, the ones who are the watchdogs, they're ones who protect you, who look into, who have the resources and mandate to look into finding truth and finding out who's lying in power, going along with them. They're not saying things that happen with this administration or this vaccine, and yet they did question it with Trump. Obviously, there's science. So you see all these things, you go, okay, wait a minute. Well, how are we going to know what's true? And this is what I do all the time, is you can't know what's true. You can't trust somebody by authority or by education or by power. You can't trust them. You trust somebody due to consistent action in either your behalf or in truth's behalf. You know, when they consistently do this, when they correct themselves when they're wrong, because we all are wrong, and they look for the best, highest good for all involved, that's when they gain your trust. You have learned to trust them because they've been consistent. Can they at some point go bad? Yeah, it could happen any time. It could happen. It's just the longer and more consistent you are, the less chance, that they would happen. So we can find out what the goals of these people in government and out and around government, the globalists, the people in government, the people, Pelosi's and those people, all those group. We can see what their goal is by what has happened. Now, it's been a couple of years. Right, so we have now seen this in action, and we've seen them change. No masks, because yes, masks, no masks. What the heck was that? I guess that was thunder. Holy cow. Hold on, I'm going to go turn off my subwoofer just to be safe. Yeah, it was thunder. Holy cow. Lightning must have hit pretty darn close. I almost had a heart attack. All right, so we can see, we can look at it's like average persons. You don't have to be doctors and whatnot. You could see what's going on here by looking at what the results are and looking back and seeing what they were to do. Now, I want to say something. Many people who are listening have heard of the phrase, where goes one, we go all, right? WG1, WGA. I think I did it right. I mean, it's close enough anyway. And to me, I found these in what's called LARPs, live action role playing. So when you have a group of people on a side and they are making things up as they go, or playing certain pieces of evidence as they go, or what have you, when one of your group come out in public and say it, the rest have to go. This is the sign of a live action role playing. And I've been in bulletin boards years ago where this was the case. Surfing the Apocalypse was one of them. They're still around, I think. There's a couple other ones where you'd have teams and they would come up with a story, the jump room to Mars or some kind of a story, and they'd run out certain evidences, and they would contradict those, they would attack those who disagreed, and so on. And their goal was to push their position and see how many people they can get to believe it. I mean, to me, I thought it was sick, and I stopped going to those boards because it's like, we're supposed to be finding truth here, not making stuff up just to see how we can win. But that's what a LARP is. An example of a modern LARP would be like these Paradise, what's it, the Bachelors, the Bachelor, Bachelorette? That's an example of a LARP, where you have the people in there supposedly working on their own, doing their own stuff, yet under the kind of the guise and guidance of the overall show. We got some kind of a rule format for our group that you work within, and then you come up with your own things, and people in that group will go with it. They'll run with it. They'll deal with it. Even if you're fighting each other on the show, so to speak, you're going to react and go with that given, not just reject it. And this is what's going on. It's been going on through politics. It's going on through all this stuff for years. But to me, I think it's very telling now, because when they came out with the COVID narrative, it's a fiction. They're working with people got sick. There was, I'm not going to go whether it even is COVID or not. People have gotten sick, and they've worked with it. A lot of those people probably had the flu. A lot of them had other conditions, and they normally weren't counted. Then they were counted. But they've worked with this narrative of COVID. We have to restrain liberty in order to save lives. That was their mantra. And if you look at the consistency of what has happened, as they have played this LARP out over time, they have shifted when they need to for furthering their goals. So you go from, you got to stay home for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. The curve's flattened. No, you still got to stay home. And we got to let you go into the big box stores, big billion-dollar corporations. You can go there, but you can't go to the smaller stores because you're going to crush them out of existence. And you're going to push all of the people to the big stores. Well, why? Well, you want the big stores on your side to help your LARP. So you're going to them going, look, you want to be in our team? All right, here's what you do. You make people go through one door, out the other door. You have some lines and spaces and all this, and we will let them come to you. And don't say anything while we crush your opponents. And you'll have Menards and Home Depot will still be allowed to compete because they are in the big group, and the smaller lumbers and hardware stores will close because they can't afford to simply do these things for a long period of time. Those other companies got a big trough to go from, plus having the government bail them out, various aspects of that along the way. So in that LARP, you have the big corporation, McDonald's, the people who are being attacked, individual stores, individual restaurants. Excuse me. So you have, as you see this playing out, you go, well, wait a minute, how come it's okay I can go into there and not into there? Well, the reason is they want to crush out those other people. Why? What do they do? It's not personal. It's a plan to make everything this giant corporate thing under this global system. You have the riots coming out. This is not even to do with COVID, right? You had the riots coming out on the West Coast. Oh no, they're mostly peaceful as there's a burning building in the background. No, it's okay. People were killed. They took over buildings, private property, public property. Okay. It's okay because it's furthering their goals of getting this, rebel army together to threaten the people who are there to kowtow. Hey, you don't do what we tell you?